If you're an Xbox customer, the thing I want you to know is this is about delivering great exclusive games for you that ship on platforms where Game Pass exists. And that's our goal. That's why we're doing this. That's the root of this partnership that we're building, and the creative capability we will be able to bring to market for our Xbox customers. It's going to be the best it's ever been for Xbox after we're done here.
What's up, guys? Hope y'all are having a great day today, just full of so much positivity and happiness, dude, because I can guarantee you the stuff we're going to be talking about here today is anything but positive, because once again, we are here to talk about none other than my personal favorite gaming platform at the moment, and that, of course, is Xbox.
Gaming.
And trust me, guys, we have a lot of ground to cover here today, but to make a long story short, guys, it's over. You know, X-Bros, we had a good run. The Xbox 360 will probably go down in history as my personal favorite console. The beginning of the Xbox One generation was looking promising with a fantastic games lineup, but ever since then, it has been a downward spiral with disappointment after disappointment, waiting until E3 after E3, just hoping that something is finally gonna give, and the vision that we have been pitched by Phil Spencer will finally pay off. But a decade later, here we are, and Xbox is probably at the lowest point it's ever been in terms of public perception. The console sales are down in the gutter with a 31% year-over-year decline from an already 26% year-over-year decline the year before. Things are not looking good for Team Green, and this once great platform that personally I can say is the only console platform I was ever genuinely a fan of, because I never really cared about PlayStation growing up. I always liked Nintendo, but I never really enjoyed the consoles themselves per se. But the Xbox 360 was something special, man. It was the one console I genuinely felt attached to, and attached to the ecosystem, and for the past 10 years I have been waiting patiently for Xbox to get their shit together. I have invested probably tens of thousands of dollars in digital games over the year. I've spent thousands of dollars on Xbox hardware. I've spent hundreds of dollars on Xbox controllers, and however much money on subscriptions as well. I have been a Game Pass subscriber pretty much since it came out. And honestly, man, I will be the first to admit I got duped. I got sold a bill of goods by the snake oil salesman of the video game industry, the silver-tongued Phil Spencer with his communications degree. And I think it's just finally time to admit the hopium, the copium, whatever you want to call it, is running low at this point. There is no end in sight in my mind aside from Xbox becoming a third-party publisher and basically abandoning the Xbox console. It may not be this generation, it may not even be the next generation, but can you honestly answer the question of whether or not you think Xbox is in a good place right now as a platform moving into the future, and feel comfortable dumping even more money into this ecosystem? Because I can't, bro. I really can't. I'm not spending any more money with Xbox. I'm not buying any more digital games. I sold off my physical games. I still have my Xbox 360 game collection that mainly is comprised of non-backwards compatible games that I don't already own digitally, but I think I'm just done investing money into the Xbox ecosystem because I don't feel safe at this point. The future is so uncertain. It just seems like 1 minute they're telling us one thing, and then the next, it's the complete fucking opposite. It is so inconsistent. The communication is absolutely terrible. There seems to be no vision whatsoever, and just as things are starting to look like they're solidifying, they throw a fucking wrench in the machine, and the entire process starts over again. And this has been the case for the better part of a decade at this point, that Phil Spencer has been at the helm of Microsoft's gaming division, and I don't think we can chalk it up to anything other than an unmitigated disaster. And if you've watched my live streams in particular over the past 2 years, I would say this has been a very common topic of me going on rants, but basically the downfall of Xbox, especially in this past week, has played out pretty much exactly as I have predicted in those rants.
Everything is proceeding as I have foreseen.
And honestly, man, I wish I could say I was wrong. I wish I could say that Xbox turned it around, because I genuinely like this platform. I love some of the games that they hold on to, like Gears of War 3, the game that finally pushed me over the edge to save up money as a kid and buy an Xbox 360. Gears of War is one of my favorite video game franchises of all time, and Gears of War 4 and 5 have been nothing short of an absolute tragedy for the franchise, and the mismanagement of the Gears of War franchise under Microsoft has been an absolute disgrace. Same thing with the Halo franchise, and now they own another one of my favorite franchises, which is Call of Duty, not to mention Elder Scrolls. I wish I could say I was wrong. I wish I could say Phil Spencer turned it around. I wish I could say they're putting out better games than they ever have before. I wish I could say that the Xbox catalog of first-party titles is the best in the industry, but it's not the case. And the guy who has been calling the shots for over a decade at this point has deteriorated this brand and its IPs worse than anyone who has come before. The Xbox right now is at a lower point than it was at the beginning of the Xbox One generation. And if you don't believe me, men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. And at this point in the generation, the fucking Xbox One was selling better than the Xbox Series consoles are selling right now, dude. The Xbox One is outpacing the sales of the Series consoles by several million at this point in the generation. That is a fucking red flag if I have ever seen one, dude. So unfortunately, you get to a point where enough is enough, and after an entire decade of consistent failure to ever turn the ship around, I think we all need to start pointing fingers and realize that maybe the best days are behind us. So let's go ahead and break down this absolute shit show that has unfolded in the past few days, starting with the event that kicked off this entire thing, and that is a tweet from Jason Schreier announcing that he had breaking news that Arkane Austin, the developers of the infamous Redfall, as well as Prey, and the co-developers of the Dishonored franchise, would be shutting down, along with Tango Gameworks, the creator of the critically acclaimed Hi-Fi Rush, Evil Within, and Ghostwire Tokyo, along with two other Bethesda support studios that mainly worked on mobile titles or worked in auxiliary roles supporting larger Bethesda IPs and game development projects. So this news came completely out of nowhere, dude, especially considering the fact that we're 2 weeks away from Hellblade 2, which, you know, is Microsoft's big game for the first half of the year. And on top of that, we're only 4 weeks away from this so-called beacon of positivity where Xbox, Bethesda, and Activision Blizzard will be under one roof to present the new Xbox game showcase to show the roadmap of upcoming titles to Xbox as well as other platforms as well. Like, this was supposed to be a big turning point for the company. They were gonna, you know, inject excitement and hype into the fan base and show everyone a clear vision for the future moving forward. But then they throw this wrench in the machine and completely kill any and all momentum going into that event, and once again change the narrative into doom and gloom surrounding the platform, because this news is nothing short of absolutely just shocking, to be completely honest, man. And I'll be the first to admit, I am no fan of Arkane Austin. I personally think they should have been closed down for the absolute disgusting just abortion of a game that is Redfall. But on the other hand, upon further investigation after the launch of Redfall, you know, we kind of found out the story surrounding that Arkane was forced by ZeniMax to produce this game, even though they told ZeniMax leadership that they didn't have any experience making a co-op shooter and would rather work on a single-player game instead. And when Microsoft actually acquired Bethesda, they went to Microsoft leadership and asked Microsoft to cancel the game, but Phil Spencer and co decided, no, you just go ahead and put the game out as is, even though it's a massive flaming turd. Then they pleaded ignorance, which turned out to be a complete lie, and well, the rest is history now. So while Arkane Austin does bear some responsibility for developing that absolute flaming turd of a video game that is Redfall, Microsoft and Bethesda themselves are not blameless as well, because they ultimately made the final decision to put the game out there and send it out to die, basically sealing the fate of the studio. And well, now everyone's losing their job because of shitty management decisions. And in typical Phil Spencer fashion, of course he put out statements statements that completely contradict this decision to close down the studio, and well, I think you probably should just listen to it for yourselves.
One thing I won't do is push against creative aspirations of our teams. I'm a huge supporter of Arkane Austin. Their track record is awesome. I love a lot of the great games that they've built. They're a very talented team. I love that team, and I still do, and I will totally bet on them to do another great game.
Well, Phil, it doesn't look like they're going to get a chance for you to bet on them for another great game because you decided to close them down, and I just think this is absolutely hilarious because this is going to become a very common trend that you guys are going to start detecting as we go through this chain of events of constant contradictions, public statements that are blatant lies, and just overall a complete bipolar nature of Microsoft leadership across the fucking board to just a new level of incompetence that I don't think I have ever witnessed from a corporate entity, especially one the size and should be as skilled as Microsoft is, considering their near infinite amount of resources at their disposal. But somehow, despite that, Microsoft shows incompetency on every single level continuously, man. So Arkane Austin has officially been closed and will never get a chance for Phil Spencer to bet on them moving forward. Now, I think the biggest surprise out of this entire thing was the decision to close down Tango Gameworks, which is the developer of Hi-Fi Rush, which actually won awards for Microsoft. It was one of their highest rated games in years and overall just had a very positive reception. And in the words of the head of Xbox's marketing lead, Aaron Greenberg, he came out and said that Hi-Fi Rush was a breakout hit for us and our players in all key measurements and expectations. We couldn't be happier with what the team at Tango Gameworks delivered with this surprise release. So not only was the game incredibly well received, but according to Microsoft themselves and Xbox leadership, it hit all key metrics for success that they were looking for the game to hit. So why is the studio closing down after this overwhelming success on all fronts from both a customer, critic, and I guess engagement standpoint? Why is this studio, which, you know, Phil always stresses his desire to further expand Xbox's presence in Japan and bring on Japanese developers and publishers, why is it that they're closing down their one foothold in the Japanese market that has a very strong track record of recent releases, whether it be the Evil Within franchise, whether it be Ghostwire Tokyo, or the most recent game, Hi-Fi Rush, which at every opportunity, Xbox executives, including Phil Spencer, have taken to social media to praise. In fact, there's another quote from Phil Spencer that I want to read here. It says, "One thing I won't do is push against creative aspirations of our teams. When a team like Rare wants to do Sea of Thieves, when a team like Obsidian wants to do Grounded, when Tango wants to do Hi-Fi, when everyone thought they were probably doing Evil Within 3, I want to give teams the creative platform to go and push their ability to push their aspirations." So Phil Spencer is using Hi-Fi Rush as like this poster child for, you know, his desire and his ability as the head of Xbox to enable developers to pursue their creative passions. But when developers pursue their creative passions and produce a game that is extremely well received and does well, according to Microsoft's own measurements internally, they still close down the studio despite all of this, leading the question to be, well, what does it actually mean for a game to be successful? What is it that Microsoft is looking for? Because from a developer perspective, you could literally do everything right and still get the axe, bro. So if you're an Xbox developer or studio or whatever at this point, you gotta be sleeping with one eye open at this point, because you don't know when the fucking guillotine is gonna drop on your neck, because you could literally do everything right, everything that is expected of you, put out a game that's well received, is downloaded a bunch in Game Pass, whatever the metrics of success are that Microsoft is looking for, and your ass could still be on the line, which is absolutely crazy. And circling back to Aaron Greenberg, I mean, this dude has an absolutely hilarious history on social media of constant contradictions. If we go back to the very beginning of the release window for the Xbox Series X, I mean, mean, this is the guy who came out and said that 60 frames per second would be the standard output on the Xbox Series X, and, you know, first-party games would target 120 after that. Well, fast forward to current day, and we've had several high-profile Xbox games like Redfall, Starfield, and the upcoming Hellblade 2 launching with no performance mode, with only 30 FPS available at launch on the quote-unquote world's most powerful console. So the contradictions this generation date back as far as we can remember, and I'm sure there's countless other examples in between, like Phil Spencer's infamous quote saying that the reason for them buying Bethesda was to put exclusive content on platforms where Game Pass is present.
If you're an Xbox customer, the thing I want you to know is this is about delivering great exclusive games for you that ship on platforms where Game Pass exists. And that's our goal. That's why we're doing this. That's the root of this partnership that we're building, and the creative capability we will be able to bring to market for our Xbox customers. It's going to be the best it's ever been for Xbox after we're done here.
And just keep in mind that Hi-Fi Rush, part of that quote-unquote Bethesda exclusive content, got ported to PlayStation just before the studio got shut down. But I do find it funny that there is this complete false narrative going around Xbox fanboy camps right now, trying to cope and seethe with this recent news that Tango Gameworks was shut down. They're trying to push this narrative that Tango Gameworks was basically a skeleton crew that was operating with very few people remaining after the creator of the studio, Shinji Mikami, left the studio last year, taking most of the staff with him. Now, this is completely untrue, as we can see in this series of tweets from Xbox Series X and S. Wait a minute, it appears that Shinji Mikami took most of the Tango Gameworks staff with him to his new studio, Kamoi. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that right. Now things are making sense. And one of the people who actually works at the studio and is credited in the Hi-Fi Rush credits says that's completely false. And then some other Xbox fanboy replies and says, no, it's not, lol, do your research. And the guy literally replies and says, I was working there. And people have done the due diligence and found that he is literally credited in the credits of Hi-Fi Rush. So he might actually have somewhat of a fucking idea of what he's talking about, but it just shows you how fucking brain dead these dipshits are on Twitter who are trying to push this false narrative. Because in fact, just yesterday we found out that the reason why Tango Gameworks was shut down is because they were actually looking to expand their staffing in order to balance working on 2 projects at once, that being Hi-Fi Rush 2 as well as a rumored JRPG project, and then eventually The Evil Within 3. So they actually were shut down for wanting to produce more consistent content and bring on more people in order to meet that new workload. So instead of investing more money into an already successful studio, Microsoft decided to close them down in order to cut costs. So despite what fanboys are saying, this is not because Tango Gameworks was some husk of its former self. It's because they were going to end up costing Microsoft more money than they thought they were worth. Now, after the tweet from Jason Schreier came out, it was revealed that Matt Booty, the head of Xbox Game Studios, whose name is perfectly appropriate describing the job that he does at Microsoft on a daily basis, he sent out an email to all the teams across Xbox, Activision, and Bethesda explaining these studio closures. And well, people noticed a very interesting detail in this email, because I think this really just sums up Matt Booty as a whole in terms of his wonderful job that he's done since taking this position at Xbox. And well, in the announcement of the studio closures, he overlooked a very key detail and actually put the incorrect name for one of the studios that was closing down. He called the studio Alpha Dog Studios when in reality the studio is named Alpha Dog Games. So imagine getting fired from your job at a studio and your boss doesn't even know what the fucking studio is called. And on top of that, the Roundhouse Studio, he also put incorrectly in the email as well. So just, you know, a wonderful job for Matt Booty as expected. Now, this this is where things get even more interesting. And, you know, when it comes to Xbox, when it rains, it pours, man, because, you know, in typical Microsoft and Xbox fashion, when shit hits the fan, you announce a brand new controller. For whatever reason, a new controller announcement almost always coincides with terrible fucking news surrounding the Xbox platform, and this day was absolutely no different, because Microsoft announced their brand new controller coming soon with the tagline, "Feel the burn today," with the Fire Vapor Special Edition controller. That's right, everyone who got fired. Feel the burn of this brand new fiery Xbox controller. Now, of course, an hour or so later, Microsoft updated the headline to say introducing the Fire Vapor Special Edition controller, but it did very little to divert from the absolute just total shit show that May 7th entailed for Xbox as a whole. You know, it really just absolutely could not have been written down better if you tried. Like, it's just incredible, dude. Absolutely fucking incredible. You announce a new controller with the caption, "Feel the burn," after shutting down 4 studios, dude. Absolutely fucking great. Now, of course, I'm sure the controller team had no fucking clue this was coming, because even the people who were affected by this had no clue what was actually happening. So, you know, coincidence is a hell of a thing in this situation, but it just goes to show you, man, Microsoft cannot help putting their own foot in their mouth at every given opportunity. And like I said, when it rains, it motherfucking pours over there. So that was everything that happened on day 1. But let's go ahead and fast forward to May 8th, the day after this entire thing went down, and we get some further breaking news from Jason Schreier, who says Xbox still isn't done cutting costs, sent voluntary buyout offers to some ZeniMax staff, which means basically we will pay you to quit instead of us firing you, meaning they'll get a severance package, but essentially they're getting fired. And then also some further details surrounding why Arkane Austin and Tango Gameworks closed, bad timing in regards to the fact that neither of them had an active project in development, even though Microsoft had mandated that Arkane continue working on Redfall DLC, and Tango Gameworks was just ramping up development on 2 new projects and pitching them to Microsoft. In addition, the Activision purchase has ramped up scrutiny on Xbox, which has been a thing that's been talked about for a while, because now technically their gaming division is larger than the Windows division at Microsoft. So obviously Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, is actually going to want to get a return on investment for the $80 billion he gave Phil Spencer for acquisitions, which makes sense. I mean, that's how you run a successful company. You can't just keep dumping money into something and never see an actual return. And then there's much more, but those were the main highlights that kind of came out. Which, circling back to the scrutiny surrounding Xbox after the Activision Blizzard purchase, I do think this is funny, because this is something in the past that Phil Spencer has bitched about, because basically for the past 10 years he's been able to run Xbox and not really have to worry about, you know, turning a profit or growing the business all that much. But after these massive acquisitions, naturally that's going to change. But he only really has himself to blame, because he's the one that wanted to pursue these acquisitions in the first place. But I remember about a month ago, I think at this point, maybe 2 months back, Phil Spencer came out and blamed capitalism for the gaming industry woes that he was experiencing, saying, "I don't get the luxury of not having to run a profitable, growing business," which, if you know anything about Microsoft's gaming division, it has always been a loser division for them. If Xbox was its own standalone business unit, it would have gone bankrupt a very fucking long time ago. So this is an absolute straight up lie. And now, only because Phil Spencer got literally everything he asked for from Satya Nadella and Microsoft leadership, basically including a blank check to go out and buy half the fucking industry, now he has to actually perform and provide value back to shareholders for this massive amount of money that he went out and spent, that now he's going to go ahead and cry victim and blame capitalism for why he can't run the gaming division exactly how he wants to. Boo fucking who. Have you guys noticed a trend here? I mean, there's just a complete complete, total level of incompetence across the board, pushing the blame around, constantly shifting the goalposts. It's just pathetic, dude. These guys literally are some of the highest ranking people within one of the most valuable companies on planet Earth, and this is the type of leadership that we're witnessing first fucking hand. But what's interesting about the second day events, you know, coming off of this news, we got some even worse news surrounding Xbox coming from The Verge in particular. It says, new, The Verge is reporting Xbox executives have been debating for months whether or not to put Call of Duty on Game Pass because of how much revenue will be lost. Also, discussions happening internally about potentially increasing Game Pass prices. Now, this really explains a lot because, you know, potentially they would be losing out on billions of dollars a year of revenue by basically giving away Call of Duty on Xbox and PC in Game Pass. That would be a massive hit to their financials if they did give away Call of Duty instead of charging, you know, $70 to potentially tens of millions of people who buy Call of Duty every single year. And on top of that, Microsoft has been incredibly hesitant to put any other Activision Blizzard games in Game Pass. In fact, the only Activision Blizzard game that has come to Game Pass in the 7 months that they have owned the company is Diablo 4, which came about a month ago, and basically Blizzard has been selling that game for $20 because they've had a lot of people leave the game because they got fed up with the changes. So that is the only game that has been added to Game Pass since they have acquired Activision Blizzard 7 months ago. None of the legacy titles, no Call of Duty games, no Prototype, no Spyro, no Crash, none of Blizzard's old games, nothing. Only Diablo 4 in the span of 7 months has been added to Game Pass. So this sounds about right, that Call of Duty might not be coming to Game Pass considering that basically nothing else from Activision has gone into Game Pass either. And on top of that, I mean, we've broken down the numbers in my live streams before, but Game Pass is not a thriving and profitable business like Microsoft would like you to believe. Otherwise, why are they porting games over to PlayStation? Why are they concerned about studios' games like Hi-Fi Rush not selling enough copies when the metrics should be Game Pass downloads and subscribers? Why were they disappointed by the fact that Starfield really didn't have the impact that they were hoping for when it came to new Game Pass subscribers? Because Game Pass is completely stagnating, and this is actually coming from The Verge as well, from Tom Warren. This was a few months back, and basically it says, for those asking, Microsoft has confirmed that the 34 million Xbox Game Pass subscribers includes Xbox Game Pass Core, formerly Xbox Live Gold, which is estimated to have been about 12 to 14 million people. So Game Pass has kind of been hovering around the 20 to 25 million subscriber number for the past 3 years with really no growth whatsoever, and that's mainly attributed to the fact that their console sales are in the fucking toilet, and on top of that, Game Pass is not really taken off on PC whatsoever. So Microsoft has not been able to exponentially grow Game Pass to the degree they were hoping to, and in fact, they were projecting that basically by this point, they would have at least 50 million Game Pass subscribers with 80 million to 100 million by 2027, which is absolutely looking impossible as things sit right now, considering the fact that most people who are subscribing to Game Pass are doing so only on Xbox consoles, and as Xbox consoles continue to struggle in terms of sales, the likelihood of hitting those metrics is next to impossible, leading Microsoft to have to once again pivot and reevaluate the strategy of probably putting all games in Game Pass day and date. Because if you actually do the math and look at Activision's net income for an entire year, it's around $2 to $3 billion, which in order to pay off the Activision Blizzard acquisition price of $70 billion, you would basically have to run the company as it was prior to the acquisition for 20 to 30 years in order to generate that sum of money. So if they were to put the games in Game Pass from Activision Activision Blizzard day and date, it would dramatically decrease the amount of revenue that Microsoft would be bringing in from the Activision Blizzard business unit, making it take even longer on paper to pay back the acquisition purchase price, which does not make financial sense from any perspective. And that on top of the fact that with stagnating user numbers, the pool of money that they're bringing in each month is not growing unless they continuously raise the price, which is probably why Microsoft is debating raising the price of Game Pass probably from $17 a month to, my guess, $20 a month in an effort to essentially price people out of it and then slowly phase out the day and date Game Pass promise for all first-party games moving forward. But that's just my overall theory on that, but it seems very likely that Call of Duty will not be coming to Game Pass day and date. It doesn't really make financial sense from my perspective, so I can understand why they wouldn't want to do that. But once again, it is another broken promise, considering the fact that during that last podcast that Phil Spencer, Sarah Bond, and Matt Booty held, they wouldn't commit to the fact that they were going to put Call of Duty in Game Pass day and date, but they said our goal is to put all Activision Blizzard and Xbox games in Game Pass day and date. But they wouldn't outright commit to it, so that leads me to believe that the likelihood is definitely there that Call of Duty might not be coming to Game Pass, especially considering the fact that console sales and Game Pass numbers are struggling overall, just like how Phil Spencer would not commit to the fact that Starfield would remain an exclusive to the Xbox console, saying that he would never rule out porting any game to another platform, essentially confirming that a Starfield PlayStation port is all but inevitable. So once again, guys, the sweet little lies are starting to add up, and the inconsistencies are the only consistency at Microsoft at this point. But to cap all of this off and just add further to the absolute shitstorm surrounding this entire situation, Matt Booty, living up to his name, comes out with some absolute bullshit, and basically this is what it says. Microsoft says it needs games like Hi-Fi Rush the day after killing its studios. Quote, "We need smaller games that give us prestige and awards," says Matt Booty, head of Xbox Game Studios. And basically he told employees this at a town hall he held for all of Xbox's game developers. So you really just can't make this shit up, dude. He literally says we need more games like Hi-Fi Rush the day after shutting down the studio that made exactly what he's asking for. I mean, you cannot fucking write this shit any better, bro. It's just insanity. It is absolutely fucking insane. I have never seen a more bipolar and just inconsistent leadership team than Microsoft. It is just insane. I just can't put into words how fucking crazy this shit is, dude. Like, every single opportunity they will take to directly contradict themselves and make themselves look like fucking idiots, they will take it and do it publicly for the world to fucking observe. Like, sometimes you just need to shut your fucking mouth. And, you know, I highly doubt Phil Spencer is going to go on another apology tour like he did following the launch of Redfall, because holy fuck, dude, everything he said from that point forward is being used against him right now, and he looks like an absolute fool because he is directly contradicting himself at every opportunity. Matt Booty looks like this clueless dipshit who doesn't know how to add 1 + 1 and arrive at 2. I mean, keep in mind that Matt Booty, the guy who's in charge of running every Xbox game studio, every Bethesda studio, and every studio within Activision and Blizzard, is the guy who was in charge of quadruple A Perfect Dark and founding the initiative before getting his current role. This is the guy who couldn't put together a singular video game studio and work on one video game. Perfect Dark is in basically a dark pit of development hell split between the initiative and 2 outsourcing studios that are working on the game currently. Matt Booty could not even develop a singular game for Xbox, and this is the dude who is running the show across their entirety of their studio lineup. I just, how the fuck do we get to this point, man? It is pure incompetence on every single level. A room full of shit-flinging apes throwing their fucking feces at a wall labeled with different paths and directions and strategies would have a better chance of actually succeeding than Microsoft leadership, I feel like, at this point. Because eventually, you throw enough shit against a wall, something's gonna stick. And I feel like at that point, the monkeys might have a better shot at actually pulling something out of their ass that's somewhat successful, because I really just don't know where the fuck we go from here, man. On every single occasion, Microsoft fails. Phil Spencer has had more time, more money, more resources, more studios, more developers, more franchises, more of everything than any other game company in this industry, and has produced less than all of them. How the fuck can you fail upwards for 10 years straight with over $100 billion at your disposal to literally buy anything and everything you want in the video game industry and still have nothing to fucking show for it but a literal dumpster fire that you continuously pour more and more gasoline on a regular basis? It is absolutely insane to me that we are at the point that we're at right now when it comes to the current state of Xbox. This is absolutely fucking pathetic, and it's only the beginning, I can assure you, because as we've seen with pretty much every single studio that Microsoft purchases and manages, it is a slow and gradual decline until that studio is milked dry for any and all relevance it might have once had, until eventually Microsoft either shuts it down or it fades into the background where it is forgotten and we never hear or see from it again. I don't even think Activision Blizzard is safe at this point, because given their track record with Halo, Gears of War, Rare, Lionhead, which, you know, I'm going to pull up this wonderful clip real quick just to show you another wonderful contradiction.
Developer Lionhead.
We acquired Lionhead in 2006, shut it down in 2016. A couple years later, we reflected back on that experience. What did we learn? How do we not repeat our same mistakes?
You acquire a studio for what they're great at now, and your job is to help them accelerate how they do what they do, not them accelerate what you do.
You know, obviously Xbox really learned their lesson there, huh? But it just goes to show you that they don't know what the fuck they're doing here. It is absolutely crazy to me. But I just want to read my community post because I think I put this into really good words when I typed this out, and I actually put some decent amount of thought into it. And basically, I said, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Microsoft, or Xbox, is the Disney of gaming. They have zero creativity left, and they resort to buying up studios and franchises to pad their garbage subscription service model. Due to their piss-poor management and inability to cultivate actual talent, they degrade those franchises as they're more motivated by checking diversity boxes and promoting the message than actually putting out quality content. Yet despite this fact, they are surprised when the general public doesn't mass consume their subpar slop they attempt to shovel out into Game Pass. They have also enabled the worst people to not only maintain their position of power, but have allowed them to fail upwards for the better part of a decade in an ever-increasing downward spiral that no amount of acquisitions will ever fix. Once their current catalog of IPs has been completely degraded past the point of no return, it's once again time to buy more studios and IPs to repeat the self-destructive cycle. So long as this cancerous culture and leadership team at Microsoft is present, don't expect anything to get better. It's Jover, X-Bros. All we can hope is that Microsoft takes the rest of the Western video game industry with them on their way out. And honestly, that is exactly how I feel at this point. We are witnessing the Disney of gaming here. They take everything you love, milk it for all it's worth, and turn it into absolute dog shit. They don't understand what made the things people love great in the first place, and they are completely creatively bankrupt with no idea how to run the companies that they acquire, and they keep promoting the wrong people instead of utilizing the talent in the greater industry. They have this incestuous mentality of nepotism, of promoting their own people despite the fact that they are grossly unqualified for the task at hand, instead of favoring those who have actual industry experience. You know, I got a lot of shit for this at the time when I said it, but Bobby Kotick, I guarantee you, would be running Microsoft better than Phil Spencer right now, because that dude actually built a gaming company. Microsoft has only bought gaming companies. They have never built a studio successfully. They have only ever leveraged other people's talent until they either destroy it or drive them away. There is no creativity. There is no industry expertise. You're looking at a company that, because of Microsoft's infinite budget, has enabled itself to exist far longer than it ever would have if it was a standalone business unit. Xbox, without the support of Microsoft, would have been dead and gone a long time ago, and I think that is abundantly clear when you look at the current leadership situation and everything unfolding the way it is right now. I really just don't have anything positive to say at this point, guys. I think the writing is on the wall. Get out while you still can. Don't put more money into this dying platform. I just really don't know what else to say. Xbox is going to become a third-party publisher. The console's future is basically non-existent in my viewpoint at this point, and any hope I ever had of Microsoft correcting the ship and turning this shit around, I think it's dead and gone at this point. I really just don't see a path forward. They're already putting stuff on PlayStation. The, oh, it's just 4 games narrative will once again prove to be one of Phil Spencer's sweet little lies. Hellblade 2 is already in discussions for getting a potential PlayStation port, so the writing is on the wall at this point, guys, and I don't think it could be made any more clear, and I think it's just time to accept the reality of the situation. But, you know, rant over. Let me know what you guys think about this entire Xbox situation in the comments section below. I'm always interested to hear your thoughts, and, you know, I'm sure the comment section on this one is going to be an absolute joy to dig through. So make yourselves heard. I would greatly appreciate it if you did make it to the end of this video. Holy shit, it's like 40 minutes long. I did not go into this expecting it to be that long. I thought like, oh yeah, maybe 15 or 20 minutes, but dude, we had a lot to cover, I'll tell you what. And I probably could have made this a lot longer. I left out a bunch of stuff too, but dude, it is absolutely insane. How did we get here? Microsoft has more money than God, more developers, more studios, more franchises, and more resources at their disposal with absolutely nothing to show for it. It is absolutely insane. But anyway, rant over. I'm going to stop now before I continue on. But anyway, guys, hit that like button if you did enjoy. I would greatly appreciate it. And as always, I do want to thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to check out this video and for all the recent support as well on the channel. You guys are the fucking best, and I will catch you guys next time.